this particular Psalm number 8. O Lord, our sovereign, how majestic is your name in all the earth. You have set your glory above the heavens. Out of the mouths of babes and infants you have founded a bulwark because of your foes, to silence the enemy and the avenger. When I look at your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars that you have established, what are human beings that you're mindful of them, mortals that you care for them? Yet you have made them a little lower than God and crowned them with glory and honor. You have given them dominion over the works of your hands. You have put all things under their feet, all sheep and oxen, also the beasts of the field, birds of the air, fish of the sea, whatever passes along the paths of the seas. O Lord, our sovereign, how majestic is your name in all the earth. So ends the reading of God's holy word.
Thanks be to God.
Let us pray. God of deep love and life, we turn to you as we listen to this prayer, this ancient prayer, and yet recited so many times over the centuries. A prayer about you, a prayer about us. May we find within it our high calling and your surpassing love. This we ask in your holy name. Well, of the 150 Psalms in the Bible, this one, Psalm 8, may be the one psalm in which humanity earns an A+. Doesn't happen often. Commonly we pull out maybe a C-, and sometimes we just plain fly. But today, in Psalm 8, is our day in the sun, as we are elevated to just a little bit lower than God. If you happen to glance at the news over the past few weeks, or years, you might wonder how we ever got an A+. You might perhaps suspect that God is grading on a very severe curve. Or you might conclude that if we're just a little bit below God, then God must be pretty low. Must be a pretty lousy God. But you know what? God can't be a lousy God. I approve. For one thing, lousy gods don't make rainbows. And lousy gods really don't make strawberry rhubarb pies. And all the other pies that are across the road waiting for us. Now, if we got an A+, it's not because God is a lousy God. But if God is really that good, how on earth did we score so well? How can we possibly be just a little less than angels, or a little less than God? Well, here's another possibility. Maybe God needs glasses. I mean, God is, after all, getting on in years. Vision deteriorates, mine does. Is God somehow missing all those dark and deadly traits of the human family that we see plastered across the news every day? Because of some monster astigmatism? Maybe God hasn't had a clear look at us lately. I don't mean the nice posed and cropped prom pictures of humanity. I mean the real ones. First thing in the morning, before coffee, before makeup. Remember that old expression? That kid has a face only a mother could love. And it brings to mind some pretty ugly kids. But it also brings to mind a very loving mom. Maybe a love a lot like God's love. A love able to love the good and the bad, the ugly and the beautiful. The whole gamut. I got a little bit of a taste of the gamut the other day. Down at the Canandaigua City Pier. Years ago, the city pier was quite the hub of commerce. In the days when the steamboats docked there and the trolley ran down from points north. Well, I want to tell you, truth be told, it's still the hub of some commerce. Just maybe a little bit different. Well, on that particular evening, I was sitting there eating my fillet of fish, which was a little ironic because there were a couple of people about 30 feet away fishing. But there I was, kind of minding my own business. There wasn't much obvious commerce. Not yet. That probably was going to happen later in the evening. But there was quite a diverse array of humanity streaming up and down the pier. And it covered the gamut. It really was a study in contrasts. There were young lovers and not so young lovers strolling down the sidewalk. There were dogs of all sizes zooming by in the passenger seats of cars and sometimes in the driver's seats. There was the beauty of the trees, the lake, the waves, but also the 5-story carcass down on Lake Shore Drive. It's never going to get finished. Seemingly. There were young people playing and laughing, and there were young people being questioned by the police.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Forgot to mention that there, among all of those little lower than God people, there were a few angels who engaged in a pretty fierce shouting match, which I was able to discern had something to do with a lover's triangle, or rectangle, or hexagon. Anyway, things got heated, and before I'd eaten my fillet of fish, there were no fewer than 3 Canandaigua police cars pulled up nearby. Maybe it was a light day for the police. But the point of this whole vignette is that humanity covers a whole range of vice and virtue. But the truth of the matter is that same wide range of vice and virtue exists in every one of us. It's not that there are those with the black hats and those with the white hats. Every one of us is something of a moral zebra, a blending of good and bad. And I think in our heart of hearts we generally know that. Along with the kids that were being questioned by the police, we have within us the lovers who are lost in one another's eyes. The waves kissing the shore, the dogs lapping up the wind, the other kid tossing her fishing line into the lake. And I think it's important, especially at a time when the dark underbelly of humanity seems to be so in evidence, to remember just how high we can go. Because otherwise I think we run the risk of lowering the bar so far that no one aspires to anything much above the level of a crayfish. No offense to crayfish. God, I truly believe, does not forget all of the best that we carry within us. In fact, I think that's what makes God so majestic in all the earth. That God knows how good we can be. As the expression goes, God don't make junk. And fortunately, God never forgets, no matter how distorted we become. Never gives up on us, and is forever calling us to our best possible selves. A whole bunch of years ago, there was an episode of MASH on TV, in which Father Mulcahy is out in a Jeep with radar, riding through hazardous country, trying to pick up a wounded soldier, which they do. But they come under enemy fire. The soldier has a chest injury, and he stops breathing, and they frantically radio back to the MASH unit to only find out that one of them is going to have to perform a tracheotomy with a penknife. Radar's a basket case, which leaves the good father. And with the help of some long-distance consultation with the surgeons back at the unit, Father Mulcahy does the deed beautifully. I liked that episode because for once, in all those umpteen years of MASH, the clergy's the hero. But the message of the story is that we never know our real capability until we're tried and tested. We might just be able to bring new life, new breath to another. Somebody who really needs it, hopefully not with a tracheotomy. Sometimes we need to take on something really big for us to really sense what we're made of. We hear in the psalm that we're given dominion, responsibility over all of creation. All of creation. That's pretty big. It's bigger than Texas. It's a tall order. But it's ours. Rumor has it that at one point God intended to give the job to cats, but they slept too much. So for better or worse, we got it. And there may be times when we feel overwhelmed, like Father Mulcahy, as he was just about to make the decision in the incision into the soldier's neck, that maybe we're just not up to the task. But evidently God thinks otherwise. God believes in us more than we do, which, again, is what makes God so majestic in all the earth. And God also does something else. God reminds us of just how good we can be. With stories like this little one I'm going to share with you. You've probably heard it before, especially if you've been around the net a little bit over the last few years. But it's worth telling again. It's a dog story with a human message. Maybe a divine message. A dog with a strange name, a dog called Stoa, is a 19-year-old arthritic mixed shepherd owned by a man named John. Stoa was nearing the end of his days, and his devoted John, who took him everywhere, was heartbroken. As a last-ditch effort to relieve his pain-racked friend, John took Stoa out into Lake Superior to hold him, embrace him in the cool water, hoping for some comfort for the dog's screaming joints. Amazingly, it helped. And John repeated the treatment a couple of times a day for months, giving his dear old friend a new lease on life. Well, someone snapped a picture of John holding Stoa as he almost fell asleep in his master's arms in the lake. And it went worldwide. If you haven't seen the picture, take a look. Clean it. Well, after the picture went all around the web, people actually began to offer financial support to give Stoa the veterinary care he needed to alleviate the arthritis, at least a little bit, for a while. Of course, the dog didn't live forever. He only made it to 20. But he and John offered the world quite a story of love and devotion, and a reminder of just how high and how deep we can go as we care for our little furry corner of creation. Go figure. We have in us more than we can imagine, just a little lower than angels.